And we are back and we are going to do lecture number 11, marketing research. I apologize in advance. This one's probably not going to be at the 10-15 mark like some of the other lectures have been. It's a little bit longer, and it's so large, in fact, that we do 2 lectures for this marketing research. But we will get through it together. So let's talk through marketing research. If you've ever taken a survey, this one, of course, is something that you will see online from West Elm. This is how, you're giving your feedback. And this company, West Elm, is, of course, collecting information. So what is marketing research? Well, it is the process. Formally said, it's the process and methods used to gather information, analyze it, report findings, and for related to marketing goods and activities, right? It helps inform us so that we can be better at what we do. So what is it used for? It's used to identify marketing opportunities. It's used to solve problems. It's used to monitor our performance so that we can be more profitable and we can generate higher sales and revenue, etc. Of course, if we're a nonprofit, there's things for that as well. Maybe it's showing us our level of awareness, our brand loyalty, all sorts of things that marketing research is designed to do. It is the information management. If we think about this whole puzzle, this whole pie here, what that looks like, of course, we've got product, price, place, and promotion, our big heavy hitter 4. But then we've got a few other ones that tend to fall in here when we think about the complete scope of marketing. And of course, marketing research falls into the marketing information management, that piece right up there that's kind of right here, if you can see my cursor. Okay, what's the purpose of marketing research? Well, as we said before, there's a number of different things it can do, but ultimately it's just to obtain information. We have to have goals going into that information search, but if we know what we're searching for and we know what we hope to learn, that is it. We are obtaining information. It's used by companies to help determine customer attitudes and preferences. Testing product features. I once traveled around the country testing product features. It was very interesting to see what happened, and I can tell you a little story about that. I was in Washington, D.C., and the Japanese company I work for produced copiers and faxes and things of that nature, and printers and all that. And they wanted to know why a particular new product was not selling very well. And so what we ended up finding is that in Japan, predominantly men took the role of using this important, expensive equipment, if you will, and women did not. Well, here in the United States, it was predominantly female in administrative roles that did most of the copying and faxing and printing and such. And what they found is that when I was doing this usability testing, is that women's fingernails would get caught in the way that the buttons were designed, and it would break off, and they didn't want to buy the product after they went through the testing phase. And so it really came down to something as simple as the button not being something that was compatible with our type of customer. Of course, other things that we might use marketing research for is determining our market size. How big is something if we're going to be able to grow, is it worth it? Competitive products, of course, and understanding how our company is overall being perceived by the public at large. Why is it important? Well, it answers these questions as to what products to produce, what price to sell them at, who's going to buy those products, and how to promote those products as well. It helps us gain insight. You will hear insight over and over again into our competitors, learning how and why customers prefer certain products over another. And if they're satisfied, what's the customer's level of satisfaction? It helps us grow and become more profitable, as I said. Who's the person who does it? People tend to get a little scared. They're like, oh my gosh, am I going to have to do marketing research if I get a marketing degree? Not necessarily. Large companies will have people who are specialized in that, who work on it. Smaller companies tend to send it out to people who are, they're very good and they have an expertise in doing marketing research. So small businesses, they'll usually rely on their owners, managers, employees, but you can also use outside companies depending on what your budget is. Larger companies will have in-house research departments. Trade associations will often conduct research, and nonprofit organizations will conduct their own research as well. Marketing information system. This data is collected and it's got to be sorted and stored, right? If I am swiping my loyalty card at something like a Reese's or a convenience store or some other grocery store, and they're collecting my information. What am I buying? When am I buying it? You know, they've got demographic information on me when I signed up. So they're trying to kind of compile who our best customers are and what those customers are buying. But we've got to have databases in order to be able to store that. So that is the marketing information system. So data that should be a part of these systems include customer data, our shopping patterns and demographics, right? They want to be able to form a complete picture, company records, sales and expenses and such. Competitor records, what are our competitors doing? What are they charging? Are they charging higher amounts certain times of the year and lower amounts other parts? What's happening there? So we can keep track of it. Government data, if there's regulations and things like that that we need to be aware of. So these are all sorts of things that we would have in our marketing information system. Consumer databases. There's consumer databases that exist, and we call these a customer relationship management, right? So if I'm gathering information from my customers, say I'm a realtor, I should have all of the customers that I've had over time, because I know traditionally people will buy or sell the home every 5 to 7 years. That's the typical timeline. So I know that when I get to that point, I can start marketing back to them and see where they are. Do I know that when they purchased their last home, they had teenagers? Maybe they're ready to downsize. Maybe they had young children with the last time I purchased them, and you expect that their income has gone up and they're looking for a larger home, maybe a home with a pool or a home with some land. These are all databases that that's of course a realtor that one would keep in order to be able to maximize, again, the sale and the profitability potential. Okay, a database example, Netflix. Netflix is a great one. It uses a database to keep track of behavioral data. And remember up there at the top, if you've got Netflix, it tells you, what percentage you might like this, right? So it's very interesting, and it provides a richer experience recommending different shows that a user might want. What are the types of marketing research? Well, there's internal data, right? A lot of larger companies will have large databases, collect a lot of information, especially on things like their website. That's constantly being, information is being logged. And so that could be a large source of information. There's data mining, computer algorithms and all of that to increase our insights on some of these things. That's an internal data source. Competitive intelligence. This is information that we're gathering from other sources about our competitors. Maybe it's product information, pricing strategies, and all of those sort of things will go into kind of a competitive analysis. Marketing research itself, it's this systematic process. It's where we conduct research, or we're using information to help inform insights about our product or service or customer. Environmental factors that affect marketing research. Well, there are a number of them, right? The legal environments, market trends, cultural factors, all of these sort of things can affect how a consumer acts, right? Maybe at some point, there's been a legal change, right? So for example, in cryptocurrency, there's going to be a legal change about what level you can do and make purchases with over $10,000. It has to be reported. That may change how customers buy, or it may not. It may encourage them to buy. But either way, there's probably going to be a change afoot there. And that's customers and companies need to know that. If they're accepting cryptocurrency, if they're selling cryptocurrency, what changes are going to be come about because of this? Customer attitudes, behaviors, and perceptions. Marketing research, first and foremost, is really critical in understanding the customer needs, whether it's a usability test about a new product, why they're using it, whether it's their level of affinity or loyalty toward a brand, why they love brands, why they don't love others, when they're purchasing. All of these sort of things are what we capture, and it helps us determine, what is the best place for our product to work. Okay, product research, as we talked about before, this provides us opportunities for innovation. Continuous improvement is what we're looking for. Just like with the copier that I talked about with the females that were breaking their nails. This is one of those things that has helped uncover this interesting little insight. Another insight that I uncovered when I did that particular research out in the field was that in Japan, they don't print as much stuff. They have they digitized a long time ago a lot of their files. They just didn't have as much storage space, file cabinets, and all of that. Space is at a premium, and so their reams of paper were quite small, like 250 to 300 pages. And here in the United States, of course, we have large 500 sheet reams. Well, what would happen is their tray in the copier would only hold 250 sheets. So in the United States, we would put the rest of those 250 pages aside, right? Well, what happens is it would gather moisture or dust or different things, and it would ultimately cause the machines to jam up. So we found that those two cultural differences really was something to consider in our product development as well. All right. Marketing, advertising, and promotion research. This is how we improve the effectiveness of our marketing activities, our advertising. Did it work? Did it not work? Most marketers don't just put an ad up on the Super Bowl and hope for the best. It's measured after the fact. Did it have the intended effect? Is there a return on that investment? Did it make us money, or did we spend a lot more than we actually made? So that's an important thing that market research does. Corporate research, it investigates our reputation internally. How are our customers and our employees perceiving us? What is happening there? That also is useful when we're doing mergers and acquisitions, or what happens and how that company culture and how that's perceived, that company health, if you will, that is critical for performance for an organization as well. What are some of the things that we can ask in market research? Who's the customer? What are the problems? What does the customer desire in order to be satisfied? What does the customer information about? What are their available choices? Where do they buy the product? Why are they buying the product? When are they buying the product? Very, very important in restaurant marketing. We call it day parting. Are they eating lunch, breakfast, dinner? And what do we need to do to strengthen those areas, or the areas that we don't have that we want? And how does a customer go about seeking satisfaction in the market as well? Excuse me. Okay, so the marketing research process, there's 5 steps here. We need to identify the problem. What is it that we're seeking to understand? Develop our research plan. How are we going to do this? There's a lot of different ways. We need to conduct that research, analyze all our reports and findings, and then take action. And I will tell you, sometimes these are all the same person. Sometimes each step is different. So if you have a love of research and you find that, absolutely, you can do any or all of these steps, but a lot of times in the larger companies, you'll see these segmented out. So don't get too concerned. So there's a couple of different types of research, all right? There's primary data, right? That's data that we have initiated ourselves, right? It's not something that we relied on. A lot of this is in-depth interviews, focus groups, case analysis, and stuff like that we have actually created on our own. Secondary data would be literature. We're going out and we're looking to see what other people have done, or data mining. You can go out and look at different sources for that. So there's a couple of different ways, and we call this exploratory research. We're just looking to explore, what are the answers to the questions that we may have. Primary data. There's types of primary data, the ones we originate. We got demographics and socioeconomic, awareness, intention, motivation, attitudes, and then, of course, psychographic and lifestyle, which is really my particular favorite. That's my flavor of ice cream that I like the best on research. Types of marketing research. There's 2 types. There is quantitative. This is we're gathering information and it's very numerical. Quantity, focus on that. It's a numerical sort of fit, right? Qualitative, focus on the how or the why. It's really more what we think about when we're having conversation. We're text driven. So if I ask you, why did you purchase this? That's very qualitative. If I ask you to rank something on a scale of 1 to 5, that's very quantitative. So those are the 2 different types of research that we will do. There's other ones that combine both. They're called mixed methods. We're not going to get into that in this course, but if you hear that, just know that they can be combined. Okay, so most of the marketing research efforts combine quantitative and qualitative. I told you we weren't going to get into it. We just did. But for the purpose of understanding, just know that generally speaking, you'll be asked a series of questions that ask you to rank or rate or things like that. And at the end, maybe they'll ask you your opinion. And that's what we mean by this kind of combination research. Okay. This again kind of gives you a breakdown of quantitative and qualitative, just to give you a further understanding. It's important to understand it. And of course, the differences. Qualitative really explores ideas and perceptions. Quantitative collects information. Ideas, perception, pie in the sky. Quantitative, in the box, right? Collecting information. So we kind of think of the two in that way, but it's important to know the distinction between the two. All right, so we've got these different types of primary stuff that we're generating ourselves, secondary stuff that we're getting somewhere else. So let's think about the two, all right? We've got primary quantitative information. That would be things like survey data. We created the survey and we are numerically defining it. It is a quantitative data by us, so it's primary quantitative data. What about a focus group? Well, that's conversational, that's ideas and perceptions. We're doing it with our customers. It's our primary data and it's qualitative in nature. All right, secondary, we're getting that information somewhere else. Census data. Census data is, it's very numerical. So it would be secondary and quantitative. We're not generating it. We didn't create that as our company, the census data. We're getting it from another source. Magazine articles, we're getting it from another source, but it's very sort of perception and text driven and, in that kind of floaty stuff that we talked about. Secondary qualitative information. That's how we would make the distinction in those types of things. What are some of the limitations of marketing research? Well, the results can be limited by the amount of money. The more you have to spend, the more you can uncover. Another limitation is the accuracy of the results, right? Customers can be fickle. They can say things they don't mean. They can, really, it depends on their day, their feelings, and all sorts of things go into it. And that can happen for both quantitative and qualitative. And it's also, you're not conducting it in a regular interval, so you can't really fact check how your customers are. It could be that a specific time of the year, people are feeling, in general, they have that sort of seasonal affective disorder. They're just feeling more depressed or down. And so that would have bias on the results. Or it could be that global events, pandemics, wars, other things like that would have an effect on where they're thinking right then. And it takes a lot of research in order to really baseline and understand how much of that is affected by a particular customer and how they're feeling at the time. What are some of the qualitative research message? Well, there's behavioral observation. We just like to observe people. We like to see what they do. We do that all the time. You'll see places that do eye tracking, like on menus, to see where their eyes go. That's very behavioral. In-depth interviews. I've done a lot of these, and it's very, very interesting to see what comes up. Focus groups. I've done a lot of these as well. I have some humorous stories on them. So focus groups are very interesting. All have their pluses and minuses. And of course, social listening is a very new one. We sit there and we really see what the comments and the things that come through on social media, so that we can start to track, what is the overall sentiment of what is happening here. Social listening. This is the systematic process for tracking what is being said about a given topic. We'll look at things like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, blogs, and even mainstream media. Over the last little bit, you've seen a lot of social listening on a lot of different things. For example, you might see it on a movie, or a celebrity takes a certain action. You will see all of those sort of things. Okay, quantitative surveys. This is, you've taken a survey, and of course you end up taking them, of course, even at the end of the course. Those are very quantitative, but there is a qualitative section where it asks you open-ended questions. So that is something that we look at as well. There's a different types of methods: telephone, mail, in person, online. These are all ways, and there's pluses and minuses in order to conduct research through each of these areas. Quantitative experiments, a typical A/B experiment. In an A/B test, we're going to use two different versions, and then we're going to see what works, right? In one store, we may say, hey, we are going to test this with a female customer on a blue background at a $3 price point. In another one, maybe we test a female customer on a blue background with a different price point, or maybe we change the background color, we change to a male consumer. There's something that we can change in each one, and that would be called an A/B test. Did it make a difference? Sampling. Sample is a group of people that, or elements chosen for the research, right? We can't do the whole population. We've got to narrow it down to a small sample that we are studying. Analyzing that primary data. So what we want to do is we want to interpret what it all means. When it's qualitative, we want to kind of understand those key themes and what is coming up from all of it. You know, what ultimately do we think is the gist of everything? If we're doing quantitative, we're looking at statistics. We're doing tabulations. A lot of times we're seeing if something is truly significant. We're looking at averages and means, and I mean means and averages, of course, are the same thing. And then you know, medians and modes and all those descriptive statistics that we might use to describe and understand data. CRM, of course, we've talked about that. That is our customer relationship management software that will house all of our data and help us understand those customers over periods of time when they make decisions or purchase choices. Attitude research. This is opinion research. This is one of my favorite. It's a qualitative method, and we're needing to understand information on customer satisfaction. Focus groups are one of the ways that we do that. And then, of course, opinion polls and things of that nature as well. What about an attitude research example? That way it kind of makes a little bit more sense. In 2008, Domino's was struggling. They put together focus groups to understand of customers they would consider ideal or actual customers, to what can they do to make their pizza better. They use this information to hire chefs to make a better recipe. And one of the things that they found was that universally, customers thought that their food tasted like cardboard and the sauce tasted like ketchup. Ugh, yikes. So don't do qualitative research if you're not willing to hear the truth. Anyway, it helped them. And of course, they've managed to really jumpstart their business. And they are one of the leaders now. Media research. Media research helps us understand how effective our advertising was. Did it work? If going out and spinning a sign on the street doesn't work, what about a radio ad? If that doesn't work, what about a television ad? If that doesn't work, what about a print ad? We have to measure it. We've got to know every customer type and every business is different in terms of the media mix, the mix of different media sources that we use in order to solicit the highest return, the most sales. Okay, media research example. We can see this Nielsen here, and I will let you guys come in and take a look and read through this, but it talks about the different things that they measure, and it gives somebody an understanding of different things, but it's best to do this in some type of primary research. But if you're just starting out, you can't do primary research, you don't have any media, you'll look to places like Nielsen to see what they say ranks best with the type of customer that we have. Product research, we see this, easy peasy, right? How many stars would you give this? How would you rate the features? So this is something that we look at as well, and it's very fast, and it's a high, you know, we have a high response rate for that. Product research example here, we see this is being used for consumer reports to make it easier for users to compare different products. This is something that you can go through, but this is how to shape a marketing strategy, types of questions that you might have for each of these different marketing mix elements, the people, the product, the promotion, the place, and the price. Of course, that target segment I'm referring to as people, but definitely take a look at this in this lecture number 11. Okay, don't forget to measure impact. The link between taking action and measuring results is really the most important thing. We've got to know if something worked. We don't want to unnecessarily spend money. Of course, we've spoken a little bit more about secondary research and how this can be used. It can be very inexpensive and very fast to use secondary research because I'm not having to initiate it. I can go out there, I can purchase it, or I can Google, and things like government census data and things like that. Those are free. So some of it's free, some of it's low cost, some of it's very expensive. But depending on what you need and how quickly you need it, secondary research can be a very good source of information. And in fact, I use it a lot. It's a great way of baselining information and then jumping off from that to see where you need to spend the money. So the advantages, it's less expensive and it's less time intensive, and the disadvantages, it may be somewhat dated, right? And it may not really address your exact problem. That is really a challenge with secondary research. Here's some of the data sources that you could use in order to get secondary research. Of course, you can come in and take a look at this. Syndicated marketing data. This is places where you can purchase data that they are creating. That's what we would call syndicated. It's for sale, and of course anybody can purchase that data. And there's other types of source of marketing data, of course, Google Analytics and Statista. I'm sure both of those you guys have come across as college students. So I tried to go through this and make this as painless as possible for the first lecture on marketing research. And I appreciate you sticking with me today. And if you've got any questions, of course, you know where to find me or reach out. I'm happy to answer them. And I will see you in the next lecture.